I never thought the day I'd been waiting for my entire life would begin with rejection. A father dreams of walking his daughter down the aisle, of holding her hand one last time before giving her away to the man she loves. That dream shattered the moment she looked me in the eye and said, "Dad, you're not invited. Please leave." Her voice was firm, cold even, though I caught the slight tremor that she tried to hide. Around her, the ballroom shimmered with expensive grandeur. White roses from Ecuador filled every corner. Chandeliers sparkled like falling stars, and guests in designer gowns sipped champagne that cost more than some workers earn in a week. I stood there, in polished work boots and a modest suit, clutching the gift I had wrapped myself, a father's offering, a father's last blessing. But it wasn't wanted. The rejection landed like ice water against my chest. For a moment, the world tilted. I remembered every bedtime story, every scraped knee I kissed, every night I stayed late on a construction site so I could pay her tuition on time. And now, after 28 years of sacrifice, I was being dismissed like an uninvited stranger. "Sweetheart, it's your wedding day," I said softly, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. "I only came to congratulate you both." Emily stepped back, her 12,000 silk dress rustling as she moved away from me, the very dress I had paid for. Her groom, Michael, appeared at her side, polished and smug in his tailored tuxedo. He didn't even try to hide his disdain. "Mr. Clark," he said with a smile as sharp as broken glass, "there's been a misunderstanding." But there was no misunderstanding. My daughter's eyes, Sarah's eyes, the same shade of green as her mother's, couldn't meet mine. She didn't want me there, not because of something I had done, but because of who I was, a construction worker, a man who built houses with his hands instead of inheriting fortunes. "This is a private family celebration," Emily whispered, embarrassment tightening her throat. "Immediate family only. Immediate family only." The words struck harder than any physical blow. 28 years of my life erased in a single sentence. I wasn't family. Not in that room, not in her new world. "I paid for this wedding," I said, not with anger, but with fact. "Every flower, every plate, that dress you're wearing." Michael's jaw stiffened. "Money doesn't buy class, sir." Emily nodded slightly, still avoiding my gaze. "This isn't about money. It's about fitting in. You don't understand the kind of people who are here." I understood perfectly. To her new circle, the men who built their homes weren't welcome at their parties. The father who sacrificed his entire life for his daughter wasn't good enough to stand in her photos. Around us, the elegant hum of conversation had stopped. Guests pretended not to listen, but their eyes betrayed them. Some whispered behind crystal glasses, others looked away as though my humiliation might be contagious. The string quartet played on, oblivious to the family tearing apart just beyond their polished bows. I set the gift box on a table between untouched champagne flutes. My fingers lingered for a moment, not because of the wrapping, but because of what it represented. A lifetime of giving, a lifetime of devotion. "You're right," I finally said. "I don't belong here." The walk to the exit felt like the longest I had ever taken. Every step echoed with memories, her first day of school, her high school graduation, her voice calling me Daddy when she was small enough to fit in the crook of my arm. Each memory twisted into a reminder that none of it mattered anymore. My work boots clicked against marble floors polished for people richer than I'd ever be. Outside, the spring air stung my lungs. The parking G-lot was filled with luxury cars lined up like trophies. My old pickup truck sat alone in the farthest corner, exactly where I had parked it, exactly where it belonged. I had given her everything, money, time, love, and she had chosen a world where I wasn't even allowed through the door. I climbed into my truck, closed the door, and let silence press against me. Inside that ballroom, my daughter was beginning her new life. Outside, I realized I was about to begin mine without her. And though I didn't know it yet, before the night was over, that perfect wedding would collapse into chaos. As I sat in the silence of my truck, the rejection still burning inside me, memories began to rise like ghosts. 28 years of sacrifice didn't just vanish when my daughter turned her back on me. They replayed in my mind with painful clarity, reminding me of everything I had given her and everything she had chosen to forget. Emily was only 3 when her mother, Sarah, passed away. 6 months of brutal cancer had left me with a little girl who woke up every morning asking for mommy. I was 29, with a small construction business still finding its feet. And suddenly I was both father and mother. I could have remarried quickly, brought someone else into her life to share the burden, but I couldn't do it. Emily needed me. Only me. "Daddy, will you read me another story?" she'd ask at bedtime, clutching her pink pajamas and favorite stuffed rabbit. I'd already read 3 books, and my alarm was set for 5 in the morning so I could meet clients at the job site. But how could I ever say no? Her mother's eyes looked up at me with trust that left no room for denial. "Of course, sweetheart. Daddy always has time for you." That became my motto, even when it meant sacrificing sleep, opportunities, and comfort. When she turned 8, I enrolled her in Riverside Academy, a private school that cost more per year than some people's mortgages. Half of my profits went straight to tuition checks, but I told myself it was worth it. The best education money could buy. Emily hugged me tight when I told her, "Thank you, Daddy. I'll study hard and make you proud." And she did. Straight A's, school plays, spelling bees. I was there in the front row every time, clapping until my hands were raw. High school brought changes. Riverside meant wealthier classmates, kids with trust funds and summer homes. Emily started to notice the differences. Her Sweet 16 party cost more than some cars. A BM sat in the driveway with a ribbon across the hood. It wasn't enough. "Everyone else got BMW, Dad. This Honda is kind of embarrassing." That was the first time she looked at me, not with gratitude, but with expectation. I should have recognized it as a warning. College nearly bankrupted me. Northwestern University, her dream school. Tuition alone was $52,000 a year. Add housing, sorority dues, spring break trips, and study abroad programs in Italy, and it was a financial avalanche. I cut back business expansions, put retirement on hold, even sold a piece of land I'd been holding on to for investment. Every dollar went to Emily's education and happiness. Each time she called, it wasn't to ask how I was doing. It was to request another transfer. "Dad, I need $3,000 for a networking trip. Dad, I need $2,500 for books." Always urgent, always necessary. And I always found a way. Even after college, the spending didn't stop. She wanted a nicer apartment in Chicago, and I made it happen. She wanted a newer car to match Michael's friends, so I paid for a BMW X3. When she complained about her credit card balances, I covered them quietly. She never saw the sacrifices behind the curtain, the missed opportunities, the loans I took, the projects I delayed. Through it all, I told myself it was love, that giving her everything would mean she would grow into someone grateful, someone strong, someone who understood sacrifice. But standing in that ballroom, today, hearing her tell me I didn't belong, I realized something devastating. My sacrifices hadn't built gratitude. They had built entitlement. For 28 years, I had believed my devotion was shaping her future. Instead, it had blinded her to where that future even came from. And as I sat in my truck, replaying each memory, one truth settled into me like stone. She had discarded the man who gave her everything, and now she was about to learn what life looked like when he finally stopped. The memory of that ballroom will never leave me. Every detail etched itself into my mind like carvings in stone. The polished marble floors, the white orchids blooming across golden vases, the rainbow light refracted from the chandelier above. It was beautiful, yes, but it wasn't beauty I felt. It was exile. Emily's words had been firm. This is a private family celebration. Immediate family only. Immediate family. The phrase kept repeating in my head like a cruel echo. Who had been there through scraped knees and broken hearts? Who had been there through bedtime prayers and sleepless nights? Who had worked double shifts to pay for tuition and braces and cars? Not Michael. Not his wealthy parents. It was me. But in that moment, none of it mattered. Michael stood tall beside her, the embodiment of everything she thought she wanted. Sharp tuxedo, practiced smile, family wealth behind him. His posture screamed possession, as if Emily were a trophy he had acquired rather than a woman he truly loved. His arm around her waist seemed more like a claim than comfort. "Money doesn't buy class, sir," he said. The words cut deep, not because they were true, but because they were the exact kind of words Emily had begun to repeat over the last few years. She had absorbed his family's standards as if they were commandments, and in doing so, she had buried everything that once made her mine. My eyes moved across the guests, hundreds of them, sipping champagne, adjusting cufflinks, whispering behind raised glasses. Their judgment was el pable. To them, I was the unrefined construction worker who didn't belong in their world of silk gowns and silver spoons. They didn't see 25 years of sacrifice. They saw only the work boots polished for the occasion, still betraying who I was. I placed the gift box carefully on the table. My fingers lingered, not because of the paper or ribbon, but because it symbolized the last offering I would ever make without conditions. It was my way of saying goodbye before they even realized what they had lost. "I don't belong here," I said quietly. My voice was steady, but inside I was collapsing. I turned, and the sound of my boots against marble echoed louder than the music. Each step was a humiliation, stretched into eternity. I kept my back straight, but every whisper behind me was a dagger. Some people laughed, high and artificial. Others just watched, curious to see how the outcast would leave. When I finally reached the doors, I looked back once. Emily had already turned away, busy smiling at guests, her back to me, as though I were no more than a minor disruption to her perfect evening. The daughter who once clung to my hand in grocery store aisles, who once begged me to stay 5 more minutes at the park, now couldn't even watch me walk away. The heavy doors closed behind me, sealing me out of her world. Outside, the air was sharp, cool, cleansing. The parking lot shimmered with Bentleys, Porsches, and Mercedes, each one a monument to wealth I could never touch. And then there was my truck. Faded paint, a dent in the bumper, worn from years of hauling lumber and stone. I had parked it in the farthest corner, already knowing it didn't belong among their polished toys. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at it. That truck was a symbol of who I was. Honest, hard-working, weathered, but dependable. Everything her world now rejected. I climbed inside, shut the door, and let the silence wrap around me. My heart felt heavy, but not weak. Something shifted inside me. For the first time, I didn't feel like the desperate father trying to hold on to his daughter. I felt like a man who had been used, discarded, and finally set free. Emily believed dismissing me was the end of the story. But it was only the beginning, because while she rejoined her guests, basking in luxury built on my sacrifices, I sat in that truck and realized something important. I had the power to end it all. Not with rage, not with revenge, but with truth. And before the night was over, the truth would dismantle everything she thought was untouchable. I sat in the cab of my truck, hands gripping the steering wheel, heart still aching from the humiliation inside that ballroom. For a few long minutes, I just breathed, in through my nose, out through my mouth, trying to steady myself. The temptation to drive away and bury my pain in silence gnawed at me. But silence was what had allowed this entitlement to grow for nearly 3 decades. No more silence. On the passenger seat lay my phone, screen glowing with missed calls from my lawyer about an unrelated property dispute. I scrolled past them, past the endless notifications, until I found the number I suddenly needed more than anything: First National Bank Business Services. My thumb hovered over the name, my entire body trembled, not from hesitation, but from the gravity of what I was about to do. Emily had dismissed me like a servant, but every inch of that ballroom, the flowers, the champagne, the tuxedos, the very roof above their heads, was paid for with my sweat and sacrifice. If I didn't belong there, then neither did the things my money had bought. I pressed call. The line rang once before a calm female voice answered. "First National, this is Patricia speaking. How may I assist you?" "This is James Clark, account number 7794512, I said, my tone steady, professional. I need to initiate stop payments on several authorized transactions." There was a pause. "Of course, Mr. Clark. Can you verify your information?" I rattled off the required details, numbers I had memorized years ago, the way some men memorized prayers. While I spoke, my eyes never left the glowing windows of the ballroom across the parking lot. Guests were still arriving, blissfully unaware. "Thank you," Patricia said. "I see several large transactions from today. Which ones specifically?" "All wedding-related payments," I said. "Venue rental, catering deposit, floral arrangements, photography, music services." Her tone shifted, cautious now. "Sir, these are significant amounts. Are you certain you want to cancel all of them?" "Completely certain," I replied. "There's been a change in circumstances. Implementation needs to be immediate. I could hear her typing, the sound of keys tapping like drumbeats of destiny. She asked for authorization codes on the largest transactions. I recited them without hesitation. 25 years of running Clark Construction had trained me to remember every number that mattered. Stop payments are now in effect, she finally said. Confirmation numbers are being generated. Is there anything else I can assist you with? That covers the banking side. Thank you, Patricia. I ended the call and let the silence return. But it didn't last long. I dialed again, this time to the catering company. Elegant Affairs. Elegant Affairs? Catering. This is Marcus. Marcus, this is James Clark. I'm calling about the Anderson wedding reception happening right now. Oh yes, Mr. Clark, he said cheerfully. Everything is going beautifully. Guests are raving about the appetizers. I'm afraid there's been a financial complication, I said flatly. Payment authorization has been revoked. You'll want to protect your equipment and remaining food service. Silence, then confusion. I'm sorry, what exactly are you saying? The bank has stopped payment on your contract, effective immediately. I suggest you secure your assets. There was a stunned pause before the line went dead. Marcus had understood. Next came the florist, the photographer, the musicians, even the linen rental company. Each call followed the same rhythm. My calm, their disbelief, the quiet panic as realization dawned. Vendors who once saw a lucrative evening now saw a financial loss waiting to happen. And professionals protect their assets. By the time the last call ended, the clock on my dashboard read 4:15 p.m. My pulse had slowed, my grief was still there, but something else had risen to replace it. Clarity. Through the windshield, I saw movement. A white van pulled up to the venue's service entrance. Painted elegantly on its side, Bellingham Blooms, the florist. Susan, their manager, climbed out with 2 assistants and empty containers in tow. I leaned back in my seat, the faintest trace of grim satisfaction warming me. Inside that ballroom, Emily was laughing, radiant in her silk and pearls, surrounded by people who believed the night would be perfect. But outside, the machinery of consequence was already in motion. For 28 years, I had given without question. Tonight, for the first time, I was taking back. This wasn't revenge. Revenge is fueled by anger, and my anger had already burned out. What remained was colder, sharper. This was justice. And justice was about to walk through those elegant ballroom doors. The first sign came quietly. Most guests didn't even notice it at first. From my truck in the parking lot, I saw Susan from Bellingham Blooms march through the service entrance with 2 assistants, each carrying large empty bins. They didn't sneak in. They didn't whisper. They walked with the brisk efficiency of people on a mission. Inside the ballroom, Emily was radiant. She stood near the entrance, accepting congratulations, her laugh carrying over the music. She looked like everything she had dreamed of. 12,000 worth of silk and pearls, framed by orchids flown in from halfway around the world. She didn't see Susan until it was too late. "Excuse me," Emily said with her rehearsed social smile, stepping toward her. "We're in the middle of the reception. Whatever you need can wait until later." Susan didn't flinch. She held a bundle of white orchids in her hands, her expression calm, almost businesslike. "Ma'am, I'm Susan from Bellingham Blooms. Payment authorization for these arrangements was canceled 40 minutes ago. I need to recover our property." The smile on Emily's face cracked like fine china. "That's impossible. Everything was paid for weeks ago." Susan shook her head. "The account holder, James Clark, contacted us directly. All payments have been stopped." Gasps rippled through the room. Guests turned. Conversations halted. Crystal glasses hovered in midair as eyes locked onto the unfolding scene. Susan's assistants moved to the altar display, carefully dismantling the centerpiece, orchids slipping away petal by petal into plastic bins. "What exactly is happening here?" Michael's voice cut across the stunned silence. He strode toward Susan, his tuxedo immaculate, his face flushed with anger. "Payment issues, sir," Susan replied. "We're collecting unpaid merchandise." "This is unacceptable," Michael barked. "Get your manager on the phone immediately." "I am the manager," Susan said evenly, "and our contract clearly states that canceled payments void our service obligations." She nodded to her assistants, who continued stripping flowers from tables. Guests shifted uncomfortably, watching the elegant displays disappear. Murmurs turned into whispers, whispers into gossip. Then the catering staff arrived. Through the main doors this time came Marcus, clipboa, card in hand, flanked by 3 waiters with solemn faces. They moved with the same grim determination as Susan's team. "Ma'am," Marcus said, approaching Emily, "I'm afraid we need to cease food service immediately. Payment authorization was revoked at 4:15. We're contractually obligated to protect our equipment and remaining inventory." Michael stepped forward again, voice booming. "This is my wedding reception. You can't just stop service in the middle of an event." "Sir," Marcus replied, his tone flat, "we can and we must. Standard procedure." He signaled to his staff, who began covering serving stations with white cloths, halting champagne refills, shutting down buffets mid-service. Guests holding half-filled plates stared in confusion, their whispers growing louder. The chaos spread quickly. The string quartet faltered when their equipment coordinator tapped his watch. Moments later, their music ceased entirely. The sound technician disconnected his mixing board. Microphones went dead. Even the lighting dimmed as power cords were pulled from sockets. What had been a symphony of elegance turned into a jarring silence. Emily stood frozen in the center of the ballroom, her perfect image collapsing around her. Her pristine dress glowed beneath chandeliers, now casting shadows on bare tables and stripped floral stands. Her laugh, so carefree only minutes earlier, had vanished, replaced by the stunned stillness of disbelief. This can't be happening," she whispered. Michael turned on her, suspicion etched across his face. "Emily, what kind of arrangement did your family make? Did you know about this?" Her lips trembled. "I don't know. Everything was supposed to be handled. My father he couldn't," but even she didn't sound convinced. The venue coordinator appeared then, phone pressed to her ear, her expression tight. She approached Emily with visible reluctance. "Mrs. Anderson, I have just spoken with accounting. All payments for today's event originated from a single account, belonging to James Clark. That account holder has revoked authorization for every transaction." The color drained from Emily's face. The little girl who once ran into my arms after school plays now stood in front of hundreds of witnesses, exposed as a woman whose world was built entirely on someone else's sacrifices. Guests whispered openly now. Some shook their heads. Others quietly slipped out the back. Phones buzzed as the scandal spread beyond the ballroom in real time. Through the tall windows of the venue, I watched it all from the cab of my truck, the florist's van filled with orchids. The catering staff packed crates of untouched food into their vehicle. The string quartet carried instruments back to their cases. Every piece of that wedding, piece by piece, was dismantled before Emily's eyes. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands, scrolling frantically to my contact. Across the parking lot, I felt the buzz against my dashboard. My daughter was calling, desperate now, the same daughter who hours earlier had told me I didn't belong. I let it ring. Inside, her voice cracked as she tried to calm guests. Michael argued with vendors. The reception dissolved into chaos. What was supposed to be the most elegant night of her life had turned into a spectacle of embarrassment. The daughter who had dismissed me like I was nothing was finally learning the cost of everything I had been. And this was only the beginning. Back home, in the quiet of my study, the weight of what had just unfolded began to settle. The sound of laughter and whispered gossip from that ballroom still rang in my ears, but in the silence of my house, another truth spoke louder. Emily believed she had cast me aside without consequence. That illusion was about to end. I pulled out the filing cabinets I had kept for decades, drawers filled with records most fathers would never bother keeping. Ever. I check. Every receipt, every tuition payment, every car purchase. I wasn't obsessive. I was a businessman. And in business, you document everything. I spread the folders across my desk, the labels a timeline of sacrifice, education, transportation, housing, personal expenses, wedding, each one a chapter in Emily's life, written not in words but in dollar signs. I began with the first folder, Riverside Academy, 12 years of private school tuition, $8,000 per year in 2008, climbing to $12,000 by graduation. I traced the figures with my finger, remembering the day she wore her plaid uniform for the first time, shy and proud. I had told myself it was worth it, and in many ways, it was, until I realized she had never once asked what it cost me. Total, $126,000. Next came the bulging folder, Northwestern University. Tuition alone was $52,000 a year. Multiply that by 4 years. Add another $15,000 annually for room and board. Add spring break in Cancun for 3 fun, study abroad in Italy, 8 tuan, sorority dues, $4,000 a year. Each item had seemed essential at the time, essential for networking, essential for education, essential for her happiness. Total, $284,000. The numbers climbed quickly. I moved to transportation. Her first car at 16, a reliable Honda Civic, $18,000. 6 months later, she complained. Everyone else drives BMs, Dad. This Honda is kind of embarrassing. So, I bought her a BMW 320i, $28,000. At 25, another upgrade, BMW X3, $42,000. Add insurance, maintenance, registration fees. Total, $75,000. I flipped to housing support. Post-graduation apartment in Chicago, $2,800 a month for 3 years. That's just over $100,000, not including utilities, deposits, or the emergencies she called me about when her spending exceeded her allowance. Total, $125,000. Then came the thickest folder, personal expenses, iPhones, laptops, clothing allowances, spa treatments, vacations, credit card bailouts. Designer handbags she insisted were professional necessities, vacations with friends that everyone else's parents were covering. Each line item seemed small in isolation, $1,000 here, $3,000 there, but years of indulgence compounded like interest on a debt she never thought she'd repay. Total, $180,000. Finally, I pulled out the newest folder, wedding. Venue rental, $35,000. Catering deposit, $28,000. Imported orchids, $12,000. Designer dress, $12,000. Photography, music, linens, endless extras. Another $60,000 combined. All of it for a night that lasted less than 2 hours before unraveling. Total, $147,000. I leaned back, the calculator screen glowing in the dim light of my study. My fingers trembled slightly as I added the numbers together. Education, transportation, housing, personal expenses, wedding. The total stared back at me like a verdict. $937,000, nearly $1 million. Almost $1 million spent across 28 years. A lifetime of sacrifice that had left me with gray in my hair and calluses on my hands. A lifetime of choices where I put her happiness above my comfort, her future above my own retirement. And she had reduced me to an embarrassment in front of strangers. I opened the photo albums that sat next to the files. Emily at 8 years old, gap-toothed and glowing after her first school play. "Thank you for coming, Daddy. Did you see how loud everyone clapped?" Emily at 12, triumph in her eyes after winning the spelling bee. "I thought about you when I was nervous, and it helped me remember the words." Somewhere along the way, those words had stopped. Gratitude had withered, replaced by entitlement. I couldn't even pinpoint when. Perhaps at 16, when she scoffed at the Honda. Perhaps in college, when her phone calls became transactions instead of conversations. Perhaps when Michael entered her life and reduced me to a small business owner in front of his family. I stared at the spreadsheet glowing. On my laptop, columns of figures, rows of years, each entry an act of love she had never acknowledged. The truth was simple. I hadn't destroyed her wedding. I had simply stopped paying for it. And if she thought the collapse of a reception was the end of this reckoning, she was wrong. The reception was just the first lesson. Tomorrow, the real education would begin. By Monday morning, the fallout from the wedding had already spread beyond the ballroom walls. Emily hadn't wasted any time. While I returned to my home office and began assembling records, she and Michael had been working their own strategy. They couldn't undo the chaos of the reception, but they could try to rewrite the story. It started with a Facebook post, a photo of Emily in her wedding gown, radiant despite the disaster, captioned with words carefully chosen to pierce hearts. "On what should have been the happiest day of my life, my father decided to punish me. He canceled all the payments and ruined our wedding out of spite. I don't know what I did to deserve this kind of cruelty, but my heart is broken. Please pray for us." By mid-morning, the post had over 200 shares. The comments poured in. "Unbelievable. What kind of father does that? You poor thing. Stay strong. Money shouldn't come before love." Each one stabbed deeper than the whispers in the ballroom had. Michael added fuel to the fire. With his family's connections, he whispered the same version of events into the right ears. Country clubs, business associations, charity boards. The Anderson family wanted the world to see me as a bitter, unstable man who had lashed out in jealousy. The effect was immediate. By noon, my assistant Rachel appeared at my office door, holding a printed email with concern etched across her face. "Mr. Clark," she said quietly, "we've received an inquiry from the Spokane Business Journal. They're asking about family troubles affecting your business operations." I took the letter from her hands, scanning two, he polished words. Behind the professional tone was a pointed question. "Is James Clark losing control?" Rachel hesitated, then added, "There's also this." She held out her tablet, showing me Emily's Facebook post. My own daughter's words, now spreading like wildfire through the very community where I had built my reputation brick by brick. The phone rang. It was Bob Martinez, a business partner of 20 years. His voice carried unease. "James, I'm seeing some concerning things online. People are saying you ruined your daughter's wedding over money. Look, you know how politics work around here. City contracts depend on reputation." 3 more calls followed within the hour, all careful, all concerned. Friends, contractors, partners. They weren't accusing me outright, but their questions were sharp, probing. Was I unstable? Was my business secure? Could I be trusted with multi-million-dollar projects if I couldn't even manage my family? Emily and Michael had chosen their battlefield well. In a city like Spokane, reputation wasn't just pride, it was currency. Destroy someone's standing, and you crippled their livelihood. But they had made one fatal mistake. I had the receipts. At 3 p.m., I called Margaret Richards, the attorney who had helped me organize the financial documents. "Margaret," I said, "we need to schedule a press conference for tomorrow morning. Full disclosure, every receipt, every payment. We're going public." There was a pause. "Mr. Clark, once this information is out, there's no taking it back. Are you certain?" "Emily and Michael have already made it public," I replied. "Now it's time for the truth." The next 6 hours were a blur of preparation. My team copied spreadsheets, scanned receipts, and organized photo evidence linking every dollar to a moment in Emily's life. Private school tuition, 3 different cars, college expenses, vacations, wedding, invoices. A timeline of sacrifice documented in ink and numbers. That night, I made calls of my own. Business partners, community leaders, Rotary Club members, people who had seen me pour decades into Spokane with integrity and grit. "Tomorrow," I told each of them, "you'll see a story about financial responsibility and entitlement. You'll see exactly what I've given my daughter and why I finally stopped. The truth will speak for itself." By the time I hung up the phone for the last time, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Calm. Emily thought she could manipulate public sympathy. Michael thought his family's connections could bury me under rumor, but sympathy collapses under evidence, and rumors wither when confronted by fact. Tomorrow I wouldn't just defend myself. I would remind Spokane who I really was. The man who built houses with his own hands, the man who gave nearly $1 million to his daughter, and the man who finally demanded accountability. The backlash had begun, but the tide was already turning. The morning after my press conference, Emily's carefully constructed world began to crumble in ways even she hadn't expected. The truth had spread too far, too fast. The Spokane Business Journal ran a feature article with the headline, "37,000 of Sacrifice, One Father's Financial Journey for His Daughter." Local news stations replayed segments of my spreadsheets, receipts, and photographs, evidence too clear to dispute. Social media, once on her side, had turned against her. What had begun as sympathy now became condemnation. Nearly $1 million and she still treated him like that? This isn't a cruel father. This is entitlement exposed. If my dad gave me even a fraction of that, I'd worship the ground he walked on. Emily's victim narrative collapsed overnight. But the greater blow came from Michael's side. His family, once so proud of their new daughter-in-law, began receiving calls of their own. Our country club friends whispered about financial fraud. Their business partners questioned their judgment. Their reputation, so carefully curated, was now entangled with the scandal of a spoiled bride and her so-called small business father. At 6:47 a.m. Wednesday morning, Emily's phone rang. It was Michael's father. She could hear his voice through the speaker as Michael listened, his face draining of color. The conversation lasted 12 minutes, but the silence afterward lasted longer. Finally, Michael spoke. His voice was clipped, almost mechanical. "My family wants me home today." Emily sat up in bed, eyes wide. "Home? Michael, this is temporary. My father will calm down. We'll fix this." "Emily, stop!" His tone carried a finality she hadn't heard before. He shoved clothes into his suitcase with sharp movements. "My father got 3 calls yesterday from business partners asking about our family troubles. The country club is buzzing with gossip. Do you have any idea what this looks like?" "This is ridiculous," Emily protested, her voice breaking. "It's a family dispute, not fraud." Michael zipped his suitcase without looking at her. "Your father published bank records, nearly $1 million of support. To everyone else, that looks like deception. It looks like manipulation. And now, it looks like I married into a financial disaster." Emily's hands shook. "You can't be serious. We've been married 6 days." "6 days," he said coldly, "that have already destroyed my reputation. My family runs in circles where people build businesses, contribute to society, create value. What have you contributed, Emily? What have you ever created besides expenses?" She flinched as though he had struck her. I was being a daughter. Daughters are supposed to be supported by their fathers." "Not to the tune of $1 million without gratitude." His voice softened, but on loud, eyes lightly. "Maybe losing everything will teach you what his money never could." He wheeled his suitcase to the door. "Call your father, apologize, figure out how to become an adult. I can't carry this. Not for you, not for my family. Michael, please, don't leave me alone. You've been alone in this marriage since it started." The door clicked shut behind him, leaving Emily in a hotel room that suddenly felt vast and empty. Her wedding dress still hung in the closet, a ghost of the celebration that had lasted less than a week. Her phone buzzed with another text, this time from Michael's mother. "Emily, dear, Michael needs to come home. Family obligations, you understand." Politeness cut sharper than cruelty. In one morning, Emily had lost her husband, her new family, and the fragile social standing she had sacrificed me to protect. For the first time in 28 years, she was truly, utterly alone. By Thursday, Emily had nothing left. No husband, no in-laws, no friends willing to defend her. Even her old college roommates stopped returning calls after screenshots of the financial documents made the rounds online. The same people who had once envied her lifestyle now whispered about how she'd never worked a day in her life. What had been admiration turned to mockery. She was no longer Emily Anderson, the elegant bride. She was Emily Clark, the entitled daughter who had humiliated her own father and lost everything in less than a week. She sat alone in the hotel room, scrolling through hundreds of comments that cut deeper with every line. "If my dad gave me even 10,000, I'd be grateful forever." Spoiled brat. Michael dodged a bullet. Each word chipped away at the carefully constructed identity she had spent years building on her father's back. For the first time, she wasn't angry. She wasn't indignant. She was ashamed. Her phone trembled in her hand as she scrolled to my contact information. She stared at my name, Dad, with tears stinging heat. Or eyes. I was the one person she had pushed furthest away, and now I was the only one left. The phone rang once before I answered. My voice was calm, steady. "Hello, Emily." Her throat tightened. "Dad?" The word came out cracked, barely above a whisper. I don't know where to start." "Start with the truth," I said simply. She took a shaky breath. "I lost everything. Michael left this morning. His family cut me off completely. I don't even have money for the hotel bill tonight. Everyone hates me." Her voice broke into sobs. "I don't understand how everything went so wrong so fast." I let the silence stretch. Then I asked the only question that mattered. "Do you understand why?" For the first time in 28 years, Emily didn't reach for an excuse. She didn't blame stress, or nerves, or Michael's influence. She lowered her head into her hands and whispered, "Because I treated you like a bank account instead of a person. Because I never appreciated what you sacrificed. Because I was selfish, entitled, and cruel." Her words spilled out like poison draining from a wound. "I dismissed you from my own wedding, a wedding you paid for entirely, And when you finally stood up to me, I tried to destroy your reputation. I lied about you. I made Michael's family spread rumors about your character. I became everything wrong with spoiled children who never grow up. For a long moment, I didn't speak. I wanted her to feel the full weight of those admissions. Then I asked quietly, "Do you remember when you were 8, after your mother died? You hugged me every night and told me I was the best daddy in the world." "I remember," she whispered. "And I meant it. I wanted to give you everything because I loved you," I said. "But somewhere along the way, giving you everything became the reason you stopped loving me back." Tears streamed down her face. "I never stopped loving you, Dee. I stopped showing it. I stopped being grateful. I stopped being a daughter and became a consumer." Her voice cracked. "I want to change. I want to earn your respect. I want to be the daughter you deserve to have. Please. I just need a chance to prove it." I let her words settle. She had finally spoken the truth. She had finally admitted the one thing money could never buy: humility. For the first time in years, I didn't hear entitlement in her voice. I heard desperation, and beneath that desperation, maybe, just maybe, the beginning of growth. The silence on the line after Emily's confession stretched long, but it wasn't uncomfortable. For the first time in years, I wasn't listening to excuses or demands. I was listening to honesty. Finally, I said, "Emily, if I help you this time, there will be conditions." Her response came instantly, almost frantic. "Anything. You'll find employment within 2 weeks," I said. "I don't care if it's cleaning offices or waiting tables. Pride is a luxury you can no longer afford." "I understand." "No financial requests for 6 months," I continued. "You will live on what you earn. No extras, no handouts. You prove you can stand on your own 2 feet. "Yes," she said quickly, "I'll do it. And we'll talk once a week, but our conversations will be between 2 adults, not between a parent and a dependent child. Do you understand the difference?" Her voice cracked again, but not from entitlement this time, from humility. "I do, and I want that. I want to earn the right to be your daughter again." I leaned back in my chair, eyes scanning the piles of receipts and records spread across my desk. 28 years of sacrifice had been reduced to numbers on a page, but those numbers told a story no one could ignore. Tonight, for the first time, Emily understood that story. "I'm going to transfer $1,000 to your account," I said firmly. "That covers the hotel for a week and basic groceries. After that, you're on your own." "Dad," she whispered, her voice trembling with both relief and shame. "Thank you. I know I don't deserve it." "You're right," I said plainly. "You don't, but everyone deserves one chance to grow up, even at 28. She sobbed quietly, but there was hope in the sound. "I won't let you down. Not again." "We'll see," I replied. "I've always loved you, Emily. Now, I want to see if I can respect you too." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I ended the call, not with anger, but with something far stronger: resolve. That night, as I sat in the quiet of my home, I thought about Sarah, about how she would have wanted Emily to grow into a woman who valued more than luxury, who understood gratitude, who carried dignity in her character, not just her wardrobe. Perhaps it had taken the collapse of everything Emily thought she wanted to begin that transformation. The next morning, I checked my account. The transfer had gone through. On impulse, I opened my email. A message waited from Emily. "Applied for 3 jobs today. Entry level, but it's a start. I'll keep you updated. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave up on you." It wasn't much, but it was something. I closed the laptop and allowed myself a rare smile. For years, I had tried to buy her happiness, believing sacrifice alone would teach gratitude. I had been wrong. Gratitude doesn't come from what's given freely. It comes from what's earned. Emily's real education was finally beginning, not in classrooms or at weddings, but in the hard lessons of adulthood. For the first time, she would learn to stand, not on the foundation of her father's money, but on her own 2 feet. And for the first time in nearly 3 decades, I felt peace. This wasn't revenge, it wasn't punishment, it was justice. And justice, when delivered with love, is the greatest gift a parent can give.